What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video here on Pig City Hockey. It's been a while since we've talked about the Jets on this channel. If you're a newer viewer to the channel, just found us for this last upcoming season and whatnot, after the Jets get eliminated in years past from the playoffs, I kind of tend to just take a back seat and not make videos. I just like to kind of take a little mental break, enjoy the rest of the playoffs, just as a fan of hockey, and then kind of reapproach the channel once the playoffs are finally over and the offseason truly begins for the NHL. Obviously, I know the offseason begins for teams once they're eliminated, but I like to wait until the playoffs are over and we get officially into the real thick of the off season. So, here we are. It's over. The Florida Panthers, back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. So your Winnipeg Jets still have a chance to be the next Stanley Cup champions because back-to-back for the Florida Panthers. So Paul Maurice might have not have been bullshitting about that. And we still have a chance to bring the cup back to Canada, be the first team to do so. So I will take all of that with a grain of salt. But honestly, super happy for the Panthers. They are one hell of a team. They are absolutely stacked, super well built from head to toe, from management to staff. Just a really well-run organization, which is crazy to think about from where you look at the Florida Panthers, a decade ago. I don't know if I ever saw this vision coming to fruition, yet nonetheless, though, it has. So congratulations to the Panthers on the back-to-back cups. And, as a Canucks fan growing up, I love to see Luongo get back-to-back rings. I absolutely love that. So, honestly, at the end of the day, I'm just happy that, a good team won. I love seeing good teams that are built from, a top first line to a fourth line. Same with the pairings, solid goaltending. That's exactly what we saw with the Panthers. But in other news with the Jets, Connor Hellebuyck, not only does he go back-to-back with the Vezinas, but he actually does the unthinkable and wins the Hart Trophy. Connor Hellebuyck is the NHL League MVP and the best goaltender in the NHL back-to-back years in a row. And again, just when you think about the company that Connor Hellebuyck is in now, winning the Hart Trophy and the Vezina in the same year, there are only 4 goaltenders in the history of the NHL that have done that. And when you look at who those goaltenders are, it is pretty freaking insane to think that the man, the myth, the legend himself, Connor Hellebuyck, Winnipeg's very own, is held now in that regard officially. I just absolutely love seeing it. We're so blessed with Connor Hellebuyck. We are witnessing one of the greatest goaltenders of all time. This isn't a generational thing. This is without a doubt one of the best goalies of all time. And, being able to witness him in his whole career in Winnipeg has just been an absolute treat. And I, for one, and I know all of you as well, can agree with the same thing. It's just been a heck of a career for Hellebuyck so far. And I cannot wait to see where he takes it next and where this team goes next after this year, because it was a hell of a good year for the Jets. Look, obviously you wanted your team to win the cup, but at the end of the day, losing in 6, you can't complain. Let's talk about who we're here to actually talk about, though. There's been a lot of catching up so far in this video, so let's talk about the big elephant in the room, and that is Nikolai Ehlers. There's a lot of variables that are going to be talking about in the coming days for the Winnipeg Jets going into free agency. There's a lot of questions, there's a lot of concerns, there's a lot of extension talk, there's a lot of potential walking in free agency, and Ehlers right now is that guy. All eyes are on Nikolai Ehlers and the Winnipeg Jets, in my opinion. Obviously, Ehlers has spent his entire career with the Winnipeg Jets, is a fan favorite, super underrated, and super critical to this club's success, especially last year. When you think about the fact that Nikolai Ehlers is one of the most underutilized players in the NHL for his skill level, and he still had a career year last year, it just shows how good he is and underrated he is by this fan base, by this management, and this organization. And I even think this fan management is, weirdly enough, they know how important he is, but at the same time, they're like, it's just Ehlers, which is just a weird thing to find yourself in. But, as of now, it seems that Ehlers with the Jets return, it's still possible. No one really knows. The camp is playing it really close to chest. And, he's not shut the door on Winnipeg. He's not coming back to Winnipeg. It's just kind of speculation from the rest of the league and whatnot. The other day I saw that Darren Dreger was talking about how, Ehlers prefers to go to a quieter destination. And Winnipeg doesn't really get any quieter than Winnipeg in the NHL. I don't really know. So I think there's a really good chance that Ehlers re-sign. I think it's just about how much money other teams are willing to offer him. I think that's going to be the big thing with Ehlers coming into this free agency, is where in the past, he took that really affordable team-friendly deal coming off of his entry level. And I think that he doesn't regret that by any means, because he's had a hell of a career in Winnipeg so far, and the injuries and whatnot. I think his contract's been very fair for the most part, and a very good deal for the Winnipeg as well. But at the same time, I can understand why a player like Ehlers, with the injury history that he's had as well, looking for that payday, trying to find that. But at the same time, I could also think that it makes a lot more sense for a guy like Ehlers to want to stick around with Winnipeg and try to compete. This is the greatest Danish hockey player of all time. 520 points in 674 career games. Last year, a career high in points was 63 in 69 games played. He has just had, actually, no, it wasn't a career year. He was one back of tying his career best. Excuse me. But nonetheless, as you saw by his stats, we all know how good Ehlers is, and not to mention how important he was in that second round of the playoffs. 8 games played, 7 points. Like, Ehlers was huge in that second round, and arguably was the best player in that Dallas series. His analytics are fantastic, but again, none of this is new. If you're a fan of the Jets, especially a fan of Ehlers, you know how undervalued he is, you know how important he is to this club's success, and, you know, you, like me probably, you're scared at the thought of what this team will look like without Nikolai Ehlers. You know, if you lose Nikolai Ehlers, management has to be dialed in this offseason to go out and try to find a replacement. Like, I don't think he's going to walk still. I think there's a very good chance that Ehlers re-signs. I think that Chevy's given him a good offer. I think it's just whether it comes down to 2 things, whether or not he wants to get paid and whether or not he wants to leave or win. And I think that, you know, when you look at where we were last year, we were talking about how Frank Saravelli was talking about how he expects Nikolai Ehlers to, you know, join Montreal, to join Patrick Laine, who's his best friend. You know, that could be a very possible destination for him. We were talking about that, you know, about this year, but early this year in January. So, you know, that could still be a possibility. That could definitely be something I could see. But again, if it goes back to what Darren Dreger said the other day, wanting a quiet destination, you can't really get much louder than Montreal or Toronto when it comes to Canadian markets. They're absolutely insane, and I don't really know if that's exactly the vibe that Ehlers is going for. You know, other teams that I've seen have been linked to Ehlers, which makes a lot of sense, is the Blackhawks. They're in a kind of a really improved quickly mode because of Bedard. They've got $25 million in cap space, so they could definitely pay to Ehlers a lot of money. The other team I think that's going to make a huge splash in free agency just because of cap and, you know, being a new team is the Utah Mammoths. I really think Utah is going to go out there and make some big moves. Whether they're smart or not, I don't know, but I really expect to see them really throw their name into the mix for acquiring top guys in free agency. So I could see either of those teams trying to acquire a guy like Ehlers. But again, what it comes down to is whether or not Ehlers wants to win now and have the best chance at winning, because I don't see him winning for a couple of years with the Blackhawks or with Utah. So it's whether or not he wants to win now, stay in a familiar place, or if he wants to chase that bag and, you know, make that really big paycheck and have a chance in the twilight end of his career. But again, with his age, his injury problem, I think Winnipeg still makes the most sense. You have your best chance to win now. The team's looking to improve right now. You've spent your whole career here. You're a fan favorite. The franchise loves you. And more importantly, it's already been known that Chevy has put an offer in place to make him a Jet for life, like you've seen with Connor, like you've seen with Hellebuck, like you see with Morrissey. So I think that Chevy's going to have a really busy offseason, but I think that he's got this. I think that Nikolai Ehlers will re-sign. That's just my thoughts. Let me know your down in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Welcome back to Pig City Hockey. Let's get it rolling. The offseason's here. Go Jets go. I will see you all in the next one. Make sure to subscribe. Yeah, and I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching. It'll all be over.